as a legal professional, you're going to have to receive feedback regularly. And the skills in actually using and receiving feedback are in many ways just as, if not more important, than giving feedback. None of us like to receive criticism. Some of us like to get good positive feedback and praise, of course, but the ability to actually listen to, understand, and use feedback effectively is an important skill that's connected to your resilience and therefore to your well-being as a professional. We don't want to end up being people that are so fragile that our whole day will be ruined by receiving feedback, so we need to develop skills and good habits around feedback that will serve us well going forward. Now, this is connected to another video in this series that looks at the skills in giving feedback, so you might want to have a look at that as well as the companion piece. And each of the points that are raised here are also dealt with in your study guide, so you can come back to that as a reference point if you need to. Alright, so the important foundation of the feedback process is a sincere engagement with that process. And to do that, you need to take responsibility for the process and for the relationship around feedback. What does that mean? Well, it's very easy to see feedback as a one-way power relationship, where you as the receiver of the feedback are sitting underneath the person who's giving the feedback. And of course that's much easier to see if that person is someone who has a status that makes it easier. So if they're a supervisor or an assessor at university, it's very easy to see that feedback as something that is done to you rather than as a process that you participate in. And if you do that, then it's very easy to start making excuses and to find reasons why you don't sincerely look at the feedback, think about it, reflect on it, and decide for yourself what you want to do about it. So part of the key to this whole area is to develop skills at managing your own emotional response to feedback, to manage that relationship, and to be proactive about it so that you are being able to make the most of that relationship and to preserve it going forward, and certainly not to be someone who runs off in a snet because they don't like being criticised, which is what we often do as human beings. Our immediate reaction to having someone tell us that we can do better is unfortunately very often to deflect that blame back to the person who gave us the criticism and to find all reasons why they're a terrible person. At the end of the day, the person who's given you that feedback, presuming this is done in that sincere, respectful relationship, is someone who has gone to the effort of helping you. And it's actually a very disingenuous and ungrateful thing to do, to then turn around and go, well, I just hate you and you're a terrible person because I feel bad about the feedback that I got, because they've actually gone to some effort to help you out. Alright, so the first point is, I guess, everyone is human, right? It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to work on something that you think you did really well on and to have someone appraise that in a way that's different. Or even if they don't tell you it's terrible, just to say, well, I don't think it's the most fabulous thing I've ever seen. There's a lot of room for improvement, and here are some things to be improved. So it's okay to feel that, and to feel that initial emotional response of, I am disappointed at that response. I thought it was better. I was hoping to have stronger feedback. I was hoping my supervisor would be giving me more praise. I was hoping my lecturer would give me more marks for this. But what we do with those feelings and how we manage that disappointment is very important to where we go as a professional. So what do? Well, we take some time to start with. We don't immediately lodge an appeal or start texting our friends and slagging off the person who gave us, the supervisor who gave us that feedback, or immediately start finding reasons why you think that person's opinion is wrong because they're a terrible person and have it in for you, and they're obviously prejudiced and they obviously have these problems and they don't understand and they don't know that when I was doing this work I had a cold and I couldn't do my best work, whatever. So it's a natural response to respond to those feelings with lots of excuses. Let those excuses come by all means, but be aware of the fact that you're doing that, right? So you go through that emotional process of saying, about the feedback, and then you go, okay, that's natural. I've I'm going to sleep on this. I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to not think about it. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to arrange some time to follow up with the person who gave that feedback to clarify some things and to make sure I've got the best benefit from that feedback. So this is where your resilience comes in, and this is where you actually show that maturity and that desire to learn going forward, but it also builds that capacity in yourself to take feedback, because you become more desensitized, I guess, to the disappointment, and you become more open to that. You become more able to deal with it. All right. Next point. Make concrete plans for improvement that come out of feedback. Don't just put it aside and go, oh well, that didn't go as well as I thought, or that went all right, but I wish I'd done better on that. Actually take in the constructive feedback, if hopefully it is constructive feedback, and make a definite plan, even if it's one thing. And say, all right, the next time I do this work, the next time I submit an assignment, I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to make sure the intro works really well. I'm going to really focus on that. Or I'm going to spend more time looking at balancing different opinions, because someone said that I was clearly leaning one way or the other. I'm going to really focus on that. Write it down somewhere. So the best thing with these sort of resolutions is to have a diary or something and say, next time I'm going to do this. And then when you do that next assignment or that next task at work, go back to that and go, did I do that? Did I learn from it? Did I take advantage of that opportunity? So be focused about it. You don't have to, if someone's given you 12 things to improve, you don't have to do all of them. It's often best just to pick one at a time to focus on. Next point, use empathy and respect for the person giving the feedback, as they may feel anxious about giving you the feedback, or they may not be comfortable about it, or they probably don't enjoy giving you bad news. It's only a small subset of sadists who really enjoy watching people squirm by criticizing them. And hopefully you're not going to run into too many of them in your professional and educational life. Most people don't like giving you the bad news. They don't like, even if they believe that your work is terrible and needs really strong improvement, they're not enjoying the process. So it's very important when you're receiving feedback to be respectful, to understand their position, to overcome your own feelings of hurt or disappointment that come out of that, and to really focus on maintaining that professional relationship. That relationship is your responsibility as well as theirs. And as I mentioned previously, there might be that power situation where they're a supervisor or a teacher or someone who has a higher status than you, but that doesn't mean it's not also your responsibility to maintain that relationship and to build that trust and respect. And that's going to make things easier going forward. It's going to make it easier for them to give you further feedback, and to trust that your response to the feedback is not going to be, say, a petulant tantrum or a threat to go over their head and to appeal their decision, or any of the things that you can do that will aggravate the situation before you've had a chance to actually sit down, listen, and discuss the situation. Now, what do you do if you get to the point where you've had a conversation with the person, they've explained, you've had that respectful discourse, you still don't agree with them? What do you do then? Get a third party to have a look at the situation and to give you a fresh perspective. If you have a mentor, this is a great thing for a mentor to do. Arrange a meeting with that mentor. And one thing that's really important with these sorts of meetings is always have a clear agenda. So, and you can, again, writing it down is always good. Say to your mentor, I want to have a meeting and there are 3 things I want to discuss. One is, do I use this principle in the wrong way? 2, do I have a problem with my conclusion in this paper? 3, is my expression confusing? Okay, so you have it formal. So what you don't end up doing is sitting down with your mentor and bitching about the person who gave you the feedback. You actually got a real agenda of focusing on, well, let's get a third party opinion and let's get an objective opinion there. And that's really important too, because again, the person giving you the feedback might not have the best skills at giving you feedback, and they might be quite right, but they might not express it terribly well. So it might be a situation where a third party who you trust can give you that more clearly and give you a better focus on that, or at least give you a bit of a reality check and say, well, I don't really agree with them, but is this something that you want to take further? Is this something that you want to escalate, or is this something where you realise, well, this is just that person's particular opinion and it doesn't affect me too badly? So mentors are good for that. The other issue where mentors can be important, but it's also important that you consider your own situation very clearly, is to ask yourself, is the feedback process escalating another source of stress that you're currently facing? So you might have something that's happening in another part of your life that is stressing you, that's causing difficulty, and it's very easy for this feedback process to become the straw that broke the camel's back, or to be something where you funnel a lot of the angst that you're feeling over another situation into that situation. So if you're working in an environment where you're not feeling valued, where you feel as though your supervisor's putting you down, treating you badly, then you go into an assessment process, and someone, maybe they don't communicate terribly well on the assessment they've given, or maybe you are just projecting a lot of those other feelings. It can be a situation where you suddenly feel that the world is out to get you, and suddenly it's not only your work supervisor who treats you badly, it's also your lecturer or supervisor in an academic context. Now, be really cautious about that and maintain a multi-focus approach to solving those problems. And the first thing, of course, is just to acknowledge it and to say, look, I may not be feeling terribly rational about this. I'm feeling pretty much at a low point because I had a really bad day at work and my supervisor yelled at me. I need to get another job, and the last thing I need is to get this paper where they said, oh, it wasn't good enough. I feel really bad about that. But then to go, well, those things are getting confused, and those things require different solutions. And again, this is a situation where a mentor can be very useful to provide you with some perspective on the discussion, to say, you know what, you're also telling me that you're having trouble at work. Are you sure you're not projecting a lot of those problems you're having on the feedback here? Because I've read your feedback and it seems perfectly fine to me. It doesn't sound like they're putting you down. As a mentor, I'm going to give you a bit of some positive vibes and say, I think you're doing really well, but make sure you don't get those things mixed up. And the other thing I think that ties into that is, don't be afraid of challenge. Don't think that just because you're feeling under pressure that's a bad thing, because we usually achieve most and we learn the most when we're in a situation where there's pressure. So I'm not saying stress is bad pressure, but if you're feeling like you're being challenged and you're feeling as though this is something that's really quite difficult and you've never done it quite before and you're not quite sure about how you're going ahead, but you're going to try really hard, that is the zone in which you really start achieving and really start learning. If you're doing something you've done 10 times before and you're just doing a minor variation on that, you're not going to learn anything from it. So again, when you're looking at your overall pressures and you're looking at the overall situation in which you might be feeling under attack, or you might feel as though the stress is getting on top of you, have a bit of a think about distinguishing the things that are stressful, that are bad things, illness or conflict or those sorts of things, from the things that are making you feel pressured, but they're pressuring you and challenging you to achieve. And distinguish between those things. Challenges are good, stress is not good. Try and keep those things separate in your mind. All right, last point. Use the feedback loop as an opportunity to build stronger relationships with the other person or people. So whether they're a peer, whether they're learning, someone who's teaching you, or whether it's an interview panel for a job you're going for or for a promotion you're going for, think of this as an opportunity to build that contact with those people, to build trust, to build respect, and to build that reputation. So again, particularly with like the promotion position, it's very easy to walk away and go, well, my supervisor and the people from HR are all idiots. They all hate me. They're terrible people. I don't want to work here anymore. Whereas if you use the opportunity of the feedback loop to say, I'd like to have another meeting over this, can you please give me some pointers? Can you give me some advice as to what I should do in my career? So next time I go for a promotion, I might be successful. You're not only helping yourself by getting more information, but you're also building that trust with those people by saying, look, no, I appreciate you had to make a decision. Appreciate it was a tough choice. Wasn't the choice I wanted you to make, of course, but I trust and respect you enough to give me some feedback and some help. And that is a cycle that will improve your overall performance. So it works also with an assessor who's marking you, because they might be someone who will mark you again in 2 or 3 more subjects while you're studying. And if you make a big deal about having a big temper tantrum about you didn't get the grade that you wanted and threaten to launch appeals against grade, or to go to the ombudsman, or you write letters to the VC, and I've seen it all in my time, then you're basically being very disrespectful of that person and the relationship, and losing an opportunity to have them remember you as someone who's a student who sincerely engaged with that process, who wants to improve going forward. And that stuff's really, really important. So like with any other element of what I've spoken about here in terms of receiving feedback, it's about being positive about the future. It's not looking back at the past and saying, I got some feedback I didn't like, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, or whatever. It's saying, all right, how are we going to do better in the future? And how am I going to use this process as a way of cultivating this relationship with this person? How am I going to develop that relationship of trust and respect, rather than be conflictual about it and basically to aggravate the situation, because that person is possibly going to be someone who's going to make another decision about you in the future, and you want them to feel the good about that. They want to feel as though that you respected the decision that they've made this time, and that going forward that you are open to improvement. And that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? What we're here for is learning. It's about improvement, and the first way to improve is to stay open about those things.